Hello, my dear friends. In this lecture, we are going to study the Fraunhofer's diffraction pattern at a double slit. In the previous session, we have seen that how the Fraunhofer's diffraction takes place when we consider a single slit. Now, in this lecture, we are going to study the Fraunhofer's diffraction pattern at a double slit. So instead of single slit, now we will consider a double slit. So here I'll draw a diagram for double slit. So first of all, we'll draw two narrow slits over here. So suppose this one is the first slit. Here I'll draw. So this is first slit, and then we have another one. This one. So these are the two slits, two narrow slits of equal width. Here I'll mark the width over here. This is the separation between the widths. So these are the two widths. The separation between these two, let it be here. This is separation between them is b, small b, and then width of each slit, let it be small a. So here this is small a, and again here also this small a. So this is slit width. Now see, and the distance between them is what? It is small b. Let mark the midpoint of these slits as S1 and S2. So this is the midpoint of first slit. Let it be S1, and this is the midpoint of second slit. Let it be S2. So now, as we all know that in Fraunhofer diffraction, we place light source at infinite distance. So whatever light is coming from that source, it will be parallel to each other. So here I'll draw few rays like this one. This is what? Incident light. What? Incident light like this. Again here also there will be a light rays. Again all are parallel to each other like this. Now see, we have seen in single slit that whenever light falls or whenever it passes normally through the single slit, it will produce a diffraction pattern over here on the screen. So now in this case there are two slits. So here diffraction pattern will be or due to these two slits. Now see, each slit will produce the resultant amplitude over here. Here I'll draw one screen over here. So this is a screen where we will obtain the diffraction pattern. So this is a screen. Here I'll draw one lens. So that that lens will focus all the incident light at a single point. So this is suppose axis of that lens, and here I'll draw a convex lens like this. So this is a convex lens. Let it be marked as a L. Now see here at these two slits, the plane wavefront of this light, which has a wavelength of lambda. Again, no doubt that light will be a monochromatic. The light will incident at these slits normally, and no doubt here, if we consider a plane wavefront at the slit itself, then according to Huygens principle, every point on the slit will act as a secondary source of light, and then it will emit the secondary wavelets in forward direction. So here, if we resemble everything, or if we consider a whole slit as a one, or instead of drawing many rays from this, I will draw only a single ray from each slit. So that will be easier for us to understand the concept. Now, as we all know, from the theory of diffraction at a single slit, we know that it will produce a resultant amplitude due to all the wavelets, these secondary wavelets, which will be diffracted from the slit, and they are at an angle of theta with the normal. So we know the equation that we have derived in the previous session. The equation is what it is: E theta is equal to Em into sine alpha upon alpha. Now we know this equation. This is the resultant amplitude produced due to the all the secondary wavelets which are starting or which are diffracted from this slit S1. So whatever disturbance will produce on the screen due to the all the wavelets here starting from the S1, I will replace all those waves by a single wave which will start from this midpoint of slit S1. So we will simply replace all the wavelets, all the secondary wavelets by a single wave which will start from the midpoint of slit S1, or we can say from this point S1. Here we have assumed that S1 is the midpoint of this first slit. So here instead of drawing all the rays, we will draw only a single ray over here. So here I will draw one single light ray which will represent all the secondary wavelets or all the light which is coming. This is a single light. So we can do same thing with this point S2 also. So here again at S2 I'll draw another ray. So these are the two light rays. This is incident light. Now see, as we have replaced all the secondary wavelets which will start from these two slits by a single light wave. So here now we will draw diffracted light. So it will be, suppose, first of all we will mark the central maxima. So for central maxima, as we all know that there will be a theta will be equal to 0. So I'll draw these dotted lines to locate the central maxima. They will have 0 phase or path difference. So first of all, here this will be P naught. So now see, this is a central maxima point. It has a phase difference or path difference which is equal to 0. Now see, now we will draw another set of light waves which are diffracted at an angle theta. So here I'll draw those rays by a blue line, this one. Again, it will start from S2 also. And then this convex lens, it will converge this light on a screen at a single point. So let that point be like this. Let this point be P. So in the same way as in the previous session, we have seen or we have found out the resultant amplitude at that point P. So here at double slit also we will find the resultant amplitude at this particular point P. And then again we will find the conditions for obtaining maxima and minima or secondary maxima and minima points on the screen. So now again I'll repeat. See this one. Here we have considered all the secondary wavelets starting from this S1 are replaced by a single wave. Again same with this one also. Now here by this red dotted line we have located the central maxima at P naught, and then by this blue line we have considered a set of diffracted light which is inclined at an angle theta, at an angle what? Theta, with this particular normal. So here I'll mark theta. Again, same with here. So this light or diffracted waves, they are at an angle theta with the normal, and then this particular convex lens, it will converge the light at a single point P. So now we have to find out the nature of this P, whether it is a maxima, secondary maxima, or minima, and what are the conditions for that. Now see, again, just a remind that when we consider single slit, and then it will produce the resultant amplitude of this value. This is E theta equal to Em sin alpha upon alpha, where again alpha is the phase difference. It is what? Phase difference. Again, the same resultant amplitude will be produced by S2 also, because we have same width, slit width as a small a. So it will produce the same resultant amplitude at this particular point P. So that means what? At this point P, we have two waves starting from S1 and S2, and then they are coming at this particular point P. So now see, the interesting fact when we consider a double slit is what? At this particular point P, whatever the diffraction pattern we are getting, that diffraction pattern is due to the diffraction takes place by a single slit, as well as the interference due to these two waves starting from these two different slits. So here, in case of double slit, whatever pattern we are getting on the screen, that is the resultant of interference due to S1 and S2, and diffraction due to individual slit S1 and S2. So that's why the nature of pattern on the screen will be different from the single slit. So before that, we will derive mathematically that how many terms or how the terms related to each other, and then first of all we will find out the resultant amplitude at this particular point P due to interference as well as the diffraction also, and then we will find the intensity and then the nature of this P, whether it is a maxima or minima. Now here, first of all, we'll write this A as A is what? It is a slit width. Slit width. This small b is the separation between two slits. Two slits. Now see, now we will find the distance between this S1 and S2. The distance between this S1 and S2. Now see, the first one, the middle one is B, and as S1 and S2 are the midpoint of the slit. So here, this particular distance, this one will be A by 2 because it is a midpoint. Whole width is A. So this one will be A by 2. Again here on this side, again that will be A by 2. So this A by 2 plus A by 2, it will be A, and this middle part will be B. So here the distance between S1 and S2, it will be what? It will be A plus B. So A plus B is the distance between S1 and S2. So here we can write this S1 S2 is equal to A plus B. Now, as I said that due to this slit S1 or the first slit, there will be a diffraction, and then the resultant amplitude. Here we'll write the resultant amplitude. It will be what? It will be E theta is equal to Em into sin alpha upon alpha. And again, as we know that here the value of alpha will be what? The value of alpha is pi upon lambda into small a into sine theta. So theta will be what? It is the angle made by wave with the normal. So this is alpha, and this is the resultant amplitude. Again, this Em, it is the maximum amplitude. Now here, as I said, here we have two waves starting from S1 and S2. So there will be an interference pattern, or there will be an interference. Now, to find the interference, first of all, we have to find out the path difference between these two waves, S1 and S2. So, for that purpose, here we will draw one perpendicular from S1 on S2. So, let this perpendicular be like this. Let this point, let it be, this point be K. So, K is the foot of the perpendicular. Then again, as this angle is theta, so again here, this angle will be theta only. So here this S2K, this one, this S2K is the path difference between these two waves starting from S1 and S2. So here, first of all, we will find this path difference S2K. We can easily do it by using simple geometry. So here I'll write this S2K. It is what? It is a path difference. And again, by simple geometry, we can say, we can write this S2K as, see, it is the opposite side of this theta. So it will be what? Hypotenuse into theta. And here hypotenuse is what? This one, S1, S2 is the hypotenuse, this one. So it will be a hypotenuse into sine theta. So here we can write hypotenuse, that is what? S1, S2 into sine theta. Again, as we know, the S1, S2 is what? It is A plus B into sine theta. So this is what? This is the path difference between these two waves, that is A plus B sine theta. So again here, from this path difference we can find out the phase difference. So therefore the phase difference is, again, see, phase difference will be what? Path difference. So here I can write this as 2 pi by lambda into this A plus B sine theta, or again I'll say, or I'll write in detail. Here, as we all know that when phase difference is 2 pi, it belongs to a path difference lambda. So here, say the phase difference be twice beta for these two waves. So this phase difference twice beta, it belongs to the path difference, this A plus B into sine theta. So by cross multiplying, here we will have the value of 2 beta as, it will be 2 pi by lambda into A plus B sine theta. Or here this 2 will get cancelled. We will have the phase difference as beta is equal to pi by lambda into A plus B sine theta. Now remember, this alpha and beta both are different. They are not same. You can easily observe these two equations. Here in alpha, it belongs to diffraction, and this beta, it belongs to interference. So now we will find out the resultant amplitude at point P. So here, for that purpose, now consider the resultant amplitude of this, first of all, diffracted wave, this one, which has been started from S1. It is what? It is E theta. And again, for this S2 also, it will be E theta only. So these two waves have same amplitude. They have same amplitude, then they are inclined at an angle theta only with the normal. So here, the resultant amplitude at this particular point P, it will be a vector addition of these two. So these two here, we will find the resultant amplitude at point P by using a vector method. So here, to find resultant amplitude at P, we will use vector method or vector addition method, we can say. So now, as we all know that if you consider two vectors which are inclined at an angle of phi, suppose phi is the phase difference between them. So let you draw two vectors. let those two vectors be, just imagine they are the adjacent side of a parallelogram. So we can easily use the law of parallelogram over here. If you remember, you already have learned this particular law in your 11th standard, that is law of parallelogram. So here I have drawn two vectors which represents the resultant amplitude of those two waves. So let the amplitude, it is what? It is E theta over here, and this is also E theta. So these two vectors are equal, but they have the phase difference, or they are inclined to each other, say at an angle of phi. So to find the resultant of these two, simply first of all, we will complete this parallelogram like this one, and then this particular part. Now see, as we all know that if we consider two given vectors as an adjacent side of a parallelogram, then ultimately its diagonal gives us the resultant of these two vectors. So this is a diagonal which will give you the resultant. Let this diagonal be R dash. So R dash is the resultant of these two. So here I'll write by using law of parallelogram. So by using a law of parallelogram, we can write this as, see, if you remember, we have, or you have learned this formula, this R is equal to under root P square plus Q square plus 2PQ cos theta. So we will use the same formula over here. So it will be, see, instead of R here we have R dash square will be equal to, so if we take square, then there is no need of this square root, or we can write this formula as like this one. R square equal to P square plus Q square plus 2PQ cos theta. So here the formula will be what? It will be like R dash square is equal to this E theta square plus E theta square plus 2PQ. Instead of cos theta, here it will be cos phi. It will be what? Cos phi. Oh, here, rather than writing this PQ, we can write this as E theta square. So this equation will be what? It will be twice E theta square plus twice E theta square into cos phi. So twice E theta square will be common. In bracket, we'll get 1 plus cos phi. Then here this 2 E theta square as it is. Then by using half angle formulas, 1 plus cos phi, it will be 2 into cos square phi by 2. So now we can write this equation as 2 to the 4 E theta square into cos square phi by 2. So this is the value of what? R dash square, that is resultant amplitude square. So now again here, since we know the value of this E theta, as this E theta is what? It is Em into sine alpha upon alpha. Then, and this phi by 2, it is the phase difference. See, this phi is the phase difference between these waves. Here we have denoted again, this is what? This is beta. We have written as beta. So here, make a change here. Let this 2 beta is nothing but it is phi. So don't be confused. So this beta will be equal to twice of phi equal to twice beta. Therefore, this phi by 2, it will be what? It will be simply beta. So here, instead of writing this phi by 2, here we will write this cos square. Instead of phi by 2, here we will write beta. So beta, it is related with the interference, and alpha, it is related with the diffraction. Remember that. So this is what? This is the equation. So here now we will substitute. We will substitute the value of this E theta here instead of this. And here, instead of this cos square phi by 2, here simply write down like this. This phi by 2 is equal to beta. So therefore, this equation will be what? R dash square equal to this 4 as it is e theta square. So it will be what? It will be em square into sine square alpha divided by alpha square into cos square beta. Into what? Cos square beta. So this is what? This is the resultant amplitude at point P due to both the waves which are starting from S1 and S2. So again, here we will write the equation as, therefore, this R dash square. See, R dash means it is a resultant amplitude, and a resultant amplitude square. That means it will be what? It will be resultant intensity. So here, since we can write this as R dash square equal to I theta, that is resultant intensity, and this Em square, it will be Im, that is maximum intensity. So here the equation will be what? I theta is equal to 4 into Im into sine square alpha divided by alpha square into cos square beta. So this is the final equation for resultant intensity at point P, and that point P is due to the interference of two waves which are starting or which are coming from S1 and S2. So now carefully observe this equation. In this equation of resultant intensity, we have two terms that will vary. Here, the first term is what? It is this one, sine square alpha upon alpha square, and another one we have cos square beta. So as I said, alpha, it belongs to diffraction. So here we will write this term here, this sine square alpha upon alpha square. We can call this term as diffraction component. We can call it as a diffraction component. Why? Because it contains alpha, which is no doubt related with the diffraction, and this cos square beta, as beta corresponds to interference, so we called it as a interference component. So here I'll write interference component. So that means what? The resultant intensity at point P, it is due to both diffraction and interference component. So both the components will be present in the equation of resultant intensity. No doubt it will affect the interference or diffraction pattern on the screen also. So here we will write again, see. So find the conditions. Here first of all we will draw one diagram over here. Before that, let us find out the condition for minima and maxima. So here I'll write, first of all, see this particular part, sine square alpha upon alpha square. Or here we can include this Im with this diffraction component also. So instead of writing only sine square alpha upon alpha square, here we will write this Im too. So this Im into sine square alpha upon alpha square, it will be a diffraction component, and cos square beta, it is the interference component. So first of all, let us find out the condition for minima and maxima. So see, as we know, for single slit, this particular component, which one? It is Im sine square alpha by alpha square. That is the diffraction component. It will be what? It will give the principal maxima. It will give the principal maxima when the value of theta is what? 0. So that is the condition for principal maxima. Now for minima, again no doubt for single slit. For single slit. Here for minima, we know the condition. that this value of sine alpha should be equal to 0. Therefore, this alpha will be equal to, we have written in general as plus minus m into pi. Here the value of m again it will be 1 comma 2 comma 3 and so on. Here again it will not, m will not take the value 0. Why? Because that belongs to principal maxima. So this is the condition for minima for single slit, that is for diffraction component. Now we'll go for maxima or secondary maxima we say. So for secondary maxima, again remember to check the path difference for minima. The path difference will be what? It is a sine theta equal to plus minus m lambda. It is what? Plus minus m lambda. Again, plus minus it is for that, or it will represent the minima point on both the side of principal maxima. So this is a sine theta is path difference for single slit, and alpha is what? It is phase difference. Now for secondary maxima, we can write, or we know that the alpha will take the values like plus minus 3 pi by 2, then plus minus 5 pi by 2, and then so on. So here we can write this as, or in general, if you remember that we have mentioned earlier that for secondary maxima, again for single slit, the condition is what? The phase difference should be odd multiple of pi by 2. It is what? Odd multiple of pi by 2. That is what? That is a condition for secondary maxima for single slit. Now come to the component cos square beta, that is interference component. So here I'll write according to interference. Now remember that there is a basic difference between interference and diffraction. In diffraction, we get the bands, alternate bands, that is minima and maxima bands, but the intensity of those maxima, it goes on decreasing. But when we consider interference, remember that in interference, the intensity of all the bright band is equal. So that is the basic difference between interference and diffraction. So here for interference, the maximum intensity. So I write here for maximum intensity. For maximum intensity, the condition should be what? This value of cos square beta, it has to be equal to 1. So then and then we will get the maximum intensity. So this here cos square beta equal to 1. That means what? This cos beta has to equal to plus minus 1. And therefore the value of beta, here beta will take the values as 0, 1, 2 and so on, or in general we can write plus minus n pi. Here the value of n, it will be 0 comma 1 comma 2 and so on. So this is the condition for maximum intensity for interference component. This is what? This is the condition. Again we can go for the path difference also. As we know the value of beta, beta is what? It is pi by lambda into a plus b into sine theta. So this is the value of beta. You remember here we have already marked over here. See this one. See this one. This equation. Beta is equal to pi by lambda into a plus b sine theta. So now to find the path difference, we will substitute the value of this beta over here. So instead see this one cos beta equal to plus minus 1. So beta is plus minus n pi. So here instead of beta, we can write pi by lambda into a plus b into sine theta equal to plus minus n pi. And then we can find here pi will be cancelled on both sides. So here the path difference, that is a plus b sine theta. This is the path difference for double slit. So a plus b sine theta will be equal to plus minus n lambda. So this is the condition for maximum intensity point for interference component. So now see, if you check out that if n equal to 0, then ultimately this sine theta will be equal to 0, which will result into that the value of theta is 0. So when n equal to 0, the value of theta is also equal to 0. That means what? That means the central maxima of interference pattern, it will be observed along the direction of incident light. So that means what? See, here theta is 0. So that means what? Interference is maximum. And we have already known that here for diffraction or for single slit, here also we get principal maxima when theta is equal to 0. That means in both the cases, in both for diffraction and interference, when theta is equal to 0, we get a maximum intensity point. And that's why, as these two components are maximum at same value, therefore here I can write the intensity of that maxima will be highest at that particular central point. Why? Because the here I'll write the diffraction component and interference component are maximum at when theta is equal to 0. Therefore, this intensity, or we can write the intensity of central maximum or central maxima is highest. Is what? It is highest. Remember this point. Why? Because here at same value, that is theta equal to 0, both components are maximum. That's why we will get the maximum intensity or highest intensity at the central point, or P naught, or what? P naught. Now we will go for minima, minima due to the interference. So here for minimum intensity, minimum intensity, see, for diffraction minimum intensity will be 0. That means what? This cos square beta has to equal to 0. So here this therefore cos beta equal to 0, and we know the condition for beta, it will be what again? It will be here, it will be pi by 2, then 3 pi by 2, then 5 pi by 2, and then so on. So we can write this as 2n plus 1 into pi by 2, will be 2n plus 1 into pi by 2, or in general we can write plus minus 2n plus 1 into pi by 2, because these minima points will lie on both the side of the central maxima. So now here first of all we will draw the graphical representation for both the components. First of all we'll draw for alpha, that is a diffraction component, and then we'll do the same for interference component, that is beta, and then we will find the combination of both. So here first of all we'll draw for diffraction pattern. So here this is horizontal line which will represent the value of alpha on both sides, and then we have here the vertical line, it will represent the intensity. So here I'll write only e theta, or instead of that e theta square, let it be, as we are going to draw the intensity. So here we know for diffraction it will be your central maxima, it will be like this one, then we have this, and then like this. On here this side also the same, and then so on. Now here we'll write the values. This will be 0, this is pi, this is 2 pi, so it will be minus pi, it will be minus 2 pi, So this is for diffraction or diffraction component. Now we will draw for the interference component here. So now see, for interference, let this horizontal line, no doubt it will represent the value of beta on both sides, and then we will have the vertical line over here. So this will represent the intensity component of diffraction. Now remember, as we all know that, well, right, this is at 0. Now see, for interference, the value of bright band or the intensity of all the bright band, it is what? It is equal. It is equal. So here, I'll draw the graph like this one. As the intensity will be equal, so all will have the same maximum intensity. This will be like, again here, we'll write the values for maximum intensity. Now this will be pi. Now this is 2 pi. On this side it is minus pi, and here it is minus 2 pi. Now see, if you observe both the graphs carefully, one can easily notice that here, in case of this diffraction pattern here, for the value of pi, we get the minima. We get what? We get the minima. But here, in case of interference, at pi, we get the maxima. We get the maxima or maximum intensity point. So the resultant of these two here, the resultant of these two will be what? It will be like this. See, before that, this one, these all intensities, it will be what? It will be cos square beta. This component will be cos square beta, and this is e theta square. That means what? It is em square into sine square alpha divided by alpha square. Now we will combine these two graphs, and here we will draw the resultant one. Yeah, first of all, I'll draw the graph and then we will compare. So here, first of all, we'll draw one horizontal line, the horizontal axis like this one, suppose. Now this horizontal line, it will represent the value of theta. Will represent the value of theta. Theta is the angle subtended by the waves with the normal. Remember that. And here we will draw one vertical axis. Instead of that, we will draw the waves directly. We'll mark maximum intensity point or line, so that will be easy for us to draw the graph. So graph will be what? See, the graph will be like this. So this is the graph of resultant intensity obtained at point P. Here, this particular part, the vertical line, it will represent the resultant intensity. That means here I'll write the value. It will be what? It is 4 into Em square into sine square alpha divided by alpha square into cos square beta. So this is what? This is the resultant intensity, and along this horizontal axis, we'll get the value of theta. It will be theta. So if we now we will combine these three graphs. Now just look at these three graphs. The first one, this graph, it is of diffraction component. This one, that is e theta square. This graph, it is for interference component, and this one is the combination of these two. Combination or the resultant of these two components is this one, third one. If you see this dotted red line, it will give you the outline of the graph. It will give you the outline of the graph, and it is also just like a graph only. See, if you check it out, this one. So it will give you the resultant intensity at point P. Now see, from all these things, we can conclude some facts. The main basic one is what the resultant intensity at this particular point P, or the disturbance obtained at point P, is due to these two waves, or the interference of these two waves, and these two waves are arrived due to the diffraction at single slit. So here we can conclude that the resultant intensity, this one, or amplitude, the resultant amplitude or intensity of each wave is governed by the diffraction due to this each single slit. So the resultant amplitude or intensities are governed by the diffraction which takes place at single slit. And here this one, the resultant intensity on the screen, it is what? It is due to the interference. This is interference of these two waves. So remember these two, that in double refraction or in double slit experiment, both diffraction and interference both takes place. Initially it is a diffraction, and then later on this one is interference. So now we will see that what effect will be on the pattern, diffraction pattern, which we are getting here. First of all, if we change the number of slits, now see here in this case we have chosen two single slits, this one, these two slits. Now what will happen if we increase the number of slits? So let's here first point be, if number of slits are increased, what will happen? Are increased. See, ultimately when we increase the number of slits, here say, if here in this case we have used two slits. So if there are three, four, five, and then so on, and then if all have same width, all slits have same width, that is suppose small a, and equal separation too. Let the separation between them, it is what? It is also equal, that is small b. So here in each case for each slit we will get the diffraction patterns. So it is been found that if we increase the number of slits, then the interference maxima, the interference maxima, it becomes narrow. It becomes what? Narrow. So whenever we use the number of, or we increase the number of slits, the interference maxima, it becomes narrow. It becomes what? Narrow. So this is the effect of number of slits. So number of slits, if we increased it, the interference maxima, it will become narrow, or that will narrow the interference maxima, as well as it will also increase the sharpness of principal maxima. It will also increase the sharpness of principal maxima, that is P naught. So when we increase the number of slits, interference maxima, it will be narrow, and this will increase the sharpness of P naught. So this is the first effect, or effect of number of slits. Now if we change, or if we increase the value of B, that is the separation. So if B is increased, so A, suppose A is constant. A means slit width, and B is the separation between those slits. So if slit width is constant, that means this A is constant. But if we increase the B, then what will happen? The spacing between the fringes, it will decrease. It will what? It will decrease. Or here we can write its effect as, what will happen? As spacing between the fringes, it will decrease. Ultimately, the bands will be nearer to each other. They will be what? Nearer to each other. So here I'll write the fringes will be, or will come together. Will come together or will be nearer as before. Or here, instead of writing, here we can write fringes will closer together. Fringes will closer together. So if we increase the value of B, that is separation, and if A, that is slit width, is constant, then the fringes will be closer together, or the spacing between them, it will decrease. So that's why what will happen? That's why more and more interference maxima will lie within the central maxima. What will happen? More of these fringes here. See, if we take a look at the graph here, as the value of B is increased, the spacing between these bright bands, it will decrease. So decrease means what? Ultimately here, now suppose just imagine that here in between for this particular central maxima, here we have two interference maxima, suppose. So ultimately what will happen when B is increased, the number of interference maxima, the number of interference maxima lie within this central maxima will also increase. It will also what? Increase. So this is the another point. Now here we will check it out for the third one. Now if we increase the wavelength, then what will happen? If lambda is increased, that means if we increase the wavelength, what will happen? Now see, if you increase the wavelength, ultimately what will happen? The field of view, it will become broader, or fringes will move apart. If lambda is increased, fringes moves apart. They will move apart, or we can say spacing between them will increase, and then pattern will become, it will become broader. Pattern will become broader. That is for lambda. And then at last, if we increase the width, that is slit width, if A is increased, then ultimately see A, it simply corresponds to the diffraction. So if you change the slit width, ultimately it will effective for the diffraction pattern. So ultimately what will happen? So if A is increased, the central peak, that is central maxima, it will become sharper. Central maxima, it will become sharper. So it will be more sharp. Then again, see the fringe spacing or the space between the fringes, it will not change. Why? Because here we have changed A and this B is constant. This B is what? Constant. Always remember the spacing between the fringes. Spacing between fringes, it depends on this B, that is separation of slit. Always remember this. So if B is constant, then spacing between the fringes, it will be also be constant. There will not be any change, or we can say they remains ineffective. But number of interference maxima lies within the central diffraction maxima will decrease. So if we increase this value of A, what will happen? The number of interference maxima into this particular central maxima, they will decrease. They will what? Decrease. So if we increase the B here, if we increase the B, the interference maxima lies within the central maxima, they will increase. And if we increase the A, then the interference maxima within this central maxima will decrease. So remember all these points, like when we increase the number of slits or small a or small b or lambda. Lambda is nothing but the wavelength. And when we increase the lambda, the pattern will become, or the central pattern will become sharper. So this is one of the important part or important concept of this chapter, diffraction. So ultimately, in your examination, there will be either frown for diffraction for single slit or for double slit. So both the parts are important. So I hope, my dear students, you have understood everything that we have discussed in today's session. Just go through the slide properly. Just take out the concepts clearly. Clear your concepts. We have done with simple mathematics, the basic law of parallelogram for vector addition, and then we have found out the resultant intensity at this particular point P. Again, I remind you that the intensity or the disturbance produced on at this particular point P is due to the interference of these two waves, which are the output of diffraction at single slit. So here there is a diffraction, there is an interference, and we have the resultant intensity distribution at this particular point P. And then one can easily find out the nature of P, whether it is a maxima or minima. Also, there are the missing terms also. In next session, we will check it out exactly what are the terms or how the patterns are missing or how the orders are missing in double slit diffraction pattern. So, my dear students, I hope you understood everything. So in next session, we will focus on missing orders in a double slit diffraction pattern. How the orders are missed. We'll check it out in our next session. Thank you so much.